Dr. Gorka, would your man, Donald Trump, have handled the Afghanistan situation better, differently?
Well, look, you don't have to like him. You don't have to have voted for him or worked for him like I did. Let's just look at his track record. Look at his 4 years in office and compare them to the last 7 months of the Biden administration. My old boss, Donald Trump, made the world a safer place. He wasn't an interventionist like his predecessors, but he wanted to end stupid wars, but also send a shot across the bows of those that threatened us or our friends, whether it was putting little Kim back in his box in North Korea, stopping the launch of missiles across the Sea of Japan, whether it was guaranteeing that Russia didn't invade another one of its neighbors, whether it was canceling the Iran deal, putting swinging sanctions on the murderous mullahs in Tehran, or the thing that we're most proud of in the Trump administration, we were told by his predecessor Obama that ISIS is a threat we just have to live with. He actually said it is a generational threat and you just got to suck it up. We came in and we said, no, we're not going to put up with this. This is a threat to all of our friends and allies in the Middle East, around the world. And we declared war on the caliphate of ISIS. Within 5 months, just 5 months of coming into the administration, we unleashed the hammers of hell on the jihadists and we destroyed the caliphate. So you know that when we were in the White House, our friends were safe, Americans were safe, and our enemies were afraid. And on my radio show, let me just share this. On my radio show yesterday, I had the former chief of staff of the Pentagon in the Trump administration who wrote the Trump withdrawal plan from Afghanistan, who said to my 3 million listeners, this is not the plan we had. We wouldn't have left without securing the embassy. We wouldn't have left, leaving 40,000 Americans to fend for themselves across Taliban-held Afghanistan. So no, this disaster, this catastrophe that will make the Iranian hostage siege look like a tea party must be laying at the doorstep of Biden. And I think his days in office are now numbered.
I was going to say, is it an unsurvivable set of mistakes? Is it the kind of, has he taken a mortal wound here, President Biden?
Look at the interview he gave with a friendly outlet with George Stephanopoulos, who was the Democrat President Clinton White House strategic communications director. That interview was a disaster. 2 days after the collapse of Kabul, he's asked about the people falling off the airplanes, and he says, "Oh, who cares? That was 4 days ago." Wrong, Joe. It was 2 days ago, and that callousness. Could you imagine if Donald Trump had said, "Well, who cares if they died? That was 4 days ago." Since then, not one person has been fired. Not the Secretary of Defense, not the State Department Chief Diplomat, Antony Blinken, not the National Security Advisor, who've all said the following. Think about it. Think if a cabinet member in the UK had said, "We don't know how many Brits are in Afghanistan. We're not sure if we can get you all home." And then, the most shocking of all, the State Department sent a reply to all the Americans trapped in Afghanistan who registered for evacuation. And they said, "Make your way to Kabul airport by yourself. By the way," and this is an unclassified email, "we cannot guarantee your security." This is unconscionable. To para, the Brits, you guys, are going outside the wire to rescue not just British nationals, but Irish nationals. And we, with the biggest military in the world, are beholden to a senile old man and his cabinet who can't do anything. Truly, the clock is ticking on the end of Biden's time in office.
According to coverage in today's Telegraph newspaper, President Biden ignored or kept away from Boris Johnson's attempts to contact him for approximately 36 hours.
Yes.
All the while the Taliban were cementing their control in Afghanistan. Does President Biden respect his British allies?
Given his actions, you'd have to conclude either he doesn't, or he's not compos mentis, he's incapable, or he's afraid. It's not just Bojo. He didn't ring any foreign head of state for 3 days. He went on vacation. He went to holiday to Camp David. When Kabul fell, he came back 3 days later to the White House, gave a 20-minute speech where he ummed and ahed, he stumbled, refused to take questions, walked away from the podium. And this is the most mind-numbing of all. It's shambolic. He got back in his helicopter and went back to his vacation, back to his holiday in Camp David. That's the opposite of leadership. And what message does it send, not just to our allies? I mean, look, I was born in the UK. The UK-US relationship is the most important to America. What message does it send to the Taliban, to Al-Qaeda, to ISIS? I can tell you, I have friends in the counterterrorism community who have confirmed for me on the record that the AQ elements in the region are flooding back into Afghanistan. We are coming up to the 20th anniversary of September the 11th. And under Biden, the Taliban that gave succor and aid to bin Laden to execute that attack, to house his camps in Afghanistan, will now be more powerful 20 years after September 11th than they were back then. This is a clarion call. This is worse than Saigon for Biden. So whether it's our friends who should be reassured, or whether it's our enemies who are now emboldened, this is a lose-lose, whichever way you look at it.
I'm going to turn to my panel guests as well just now. Eric, you're listening to that assessment. Are things as bad for President Biden as Dr. Gorka is painting them, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think he's going to survive the polling bounce because foreign policy is not a subject that a lot of American voters care that much about. But I'm kind of interested very much in Sebastian Gorka's view on, in particular, whether this is in fact a victory for Trumpism. So with this idea of the end of forever wars, you see commentators like Ann Coulter, very much Trumpist, more or less favoring what Biden's done because it's a defeat for the foreign policy establishment. The mainstream media is beside itself. It would seem to me like the swamp, the blob, whatever you want to call it, has been defeated. And I would have thought that would be something that someone like Sebastian Gorka would actually like to see.
What do you say to that, Dr. Gorka? Is it a victory for Trumpism?
I think it's a victory for those who want to end pointless wars. Look at this track record. We have invested more than $2 trillion in Afghanistan. More than 2,000 U.S. servicemen have been killed, 20,000 wounded. And what happens? The army that we trained folded in 10 days, utterly, completely folded. So it's a testament to the insanity of nation building as a mission in countries that have no nation to build. I was there in 2006. I visited 4 different provinces. I could tell back then, there's no way you're turning this into some paradise, into some, Switzerland in Central Asia. I went to the military, just one little tidbit. I went to the military academy we built with U.S. taxpayer funding in Kabul. Got an amazing PowerPoint briefing on how many NCOs, how many officers we trained, and then, became part of the Afghan army. And I thought, this sounds a little too polished. I dug a little bit deeper, and I found after each cohort of officers or NCOs graduates that we paid for, after they get their last cash per diem in US dollars, more than 40% of them disappeared forever back to their tribal redoubts, back to their militias. And that explains the efficacy with which the Taliban took over the capital and the ANSF just folded. So yes, this is a testament to dumb wars, the age of dumb wars being over. But I have to say one thing. I don't care what Ann Coulter says. Ann Coulter has blown hot and cold on my old boss, depending on whether or not she wants to sell books. So Ann Coulter doesn't represent Trumpism, any more than, a dead fish wrapped in newspaper does. I'm sorry.
Given clearly that so much of the confidence of that Afghan army depending upon the presence of the US, however slight the presence was Trump right to enter into those negotiations to say that America would pull out? Was pulling out of Afghanistan at all the right thing to do, given that was President Trump's intention also?
Right. So President Trump has made it clear that any withdrawal of the sizable footprint we had in Afghanistan was conditions based. It wasn't a, last guy out, turn off the lights. It was conditions based. Could the regime maintain itself or not? Was the ANSF dependent on our presence or not? If it wasn't, there was no way we were going to completely leave the way that this administration has done. And on top of that, what I counseled the president way back in the beginning of the administration is I said, Afghanistan matters only for one reason. It's not schools, it's not Western culture, it's not finishing the ring road around Kabul that not even the Soviets could finish. It matters for one geostrategic reason. This piece of fetid, stinking real estate must never be allowed to be utilized to execute mass casualty attacks on U.S. soil like 9/11. Period. End of story. That mission has been sustained for 20 years, and it could be sustained with a very small footprint, like the 2,500 operators we had kept in the country. What happened under Biden is he said, okay, that's it. Let's pop smoke. We're out of here. That's the insanity. And to have a nation with 12 nuclear aircraft carriers, thousands of nuclear missiles, more special forces than most nations have soldiers, to leave without getting 40,000 Americans safely home, to close down the airport and the embassy at the same time, it just beggars belief. These are the 101 basic rules of military operations, and they were flouted by an administration that is either incompetent or arrogant or both.
Sebastian Gorka, you leave us in no doubt about your strength of feeling on this matter. Thank you.